Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to tackle a really big question today. How do you actually build a business that doesn't just make a profit, but makes the world a genuinely better place? Yep, we're diving headfirst into the world of impact-driven startups.
And wow, this quote really sets the stage, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of a totally new kind of entrepreneurship. We're talking about balancing purpose with the bottom line. It's about building companies that are hardwired from day one to solve some of the world's biggest problems, not just to, chase profits.
But that's the million-dollar question, right? How in the world do you finance an idea that's aiming to change the world? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're breaking down a complete framework for launching and funding a startup that is built for impact from the ground up.
All right, here's our game plan. We've got 5 key sections. First up, the why, your mission. Then, the who, your human ecosystem. After that, we'll hit financing options, crunch the numbers for projections, and finally pull it all together in the deck for investors. Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first, the why. Look, every single great impact venture starts with a really powerful why. And we're not just talking about a business plan here. This is about your personal motivation, that deep down problem you just feel you have to solve.
So a really strong foundation, it's got to have all 3 of these pillars. You need that personal, entrepreneurial fire in your belly to get through the tough times. You absolutely have to understand a real-world broken system that needs fixing. And of course, there has to be a real business opportunity there so your solution can actually survive and grow.
And here's a fantastic tool to help you structure all this thinking. It's called the T framework. Think of it like a visual map, a canvas that helps you lay out how all the core pieces, the people, the impact, and the business model all connect and actually support each other. Super useful.
Okay, so we've nailed down the why. Now let's talk about the who, because let's be honest, no mission ever succeeds without the right people. It's time to look at the entire human ecosystem that's going to bring this whole thing to life.
And what's really crucial here is to understand the different roles people play. You've got your team, right? The people actually doing the work. Then you have the beneficiaries, the people or community you're trying to help. And finally, you've got the customers, the ones who pay and keep the whole thing running. The real magic, though, is figuring out how these 3 groups all fit together.
And this brings us to a really important mindset, especially for impact ventures. It's called the look of possibility. It's all about seeing potential where other people just see problems. Finding incredible talent in communities that others overlook, or finding value in what everyone else calls waste. You're essentially unlocking potential that the traditional market just doesn't even see.
All right, mission's clear, people are in place. Now it's time to talk about the engine that makes this whole thing go, the financing. So how do you actually get the money to make this vision a reality?
Most startups follow a pretty predictable funding path. It almost always starts small, with seed capital from what people call the 3 Fs. That's founders, family, and friends. Then, as your idea starts to get some traction, you move into early and later stages. And that's when you start attracting the professional investors. The angels and venture capitalists who can write those much bigger checks.
And this chart, it shows that journey perfectly. See that dip at the very beginning, where the revenue line goes negative? That, my friends, is the infamous Valley of Death. It's that terrifying period when you're spending way more than you're making. And honestly, it's where most startups die. Just getting through that valley is your first huge test. So, at the end of the day, every entrepreneur faces this fundamental choice. Do you bootstrap, use your own money and revenue to grow slowly, but keep 100% of the control? Or do you go for external capital, give up a piece of your company, but get the chance to scale up way, way faster? And look, there's no single right answer here. It totally depends on your goals.
Now, if you do decide to bootstrap, you have got to get scrappy. I mean, really creative. This means cutting every possible cost you can think of, working from home, barely paying yourself a salary, maybe offering consultants a little piece of the company instead of cash. It's all about stretching every single dollar as far as it can possibly go to survive and grow on your own terms.
Okay, let's quickly clear something up, because these 2 terms get confused all the time. Crowdfunding versus crowdsourcing. It's actually pretty simple when you think about it. Crowdfunding is for raising funds from the crowd. Crowdsourcing is for getting a source of ideas or work from the crowd. See the difference? Both are super powerful tools, but they solve totally different problems.
All right, if you're going to raise money from outside investors, your passion and your big vision, well, they aren't going to be enough. You have to learn to speak their language. And believe me, that language is numbers.
So how on earth do investors figure out what a young company is actually worth?
Well, two of the most common ways are the method of multiples and the venture capital method. The multiples one is kind of like valuing a house. You just look at what similar houses in the neighborhood sold for, right? The VC method is a bit different. It's all about predicting what the company might sell for way down the road, and then doing some math to work backwards to a value for today.
So let's just walk through this example of the VC method real quick. See how they project the sales all the way out to year 4? Then they apply a market multiple to get this big future valuation, what they call an exit valuation. But remember, that's the future value. To get what it's worth today, they apply this huge, massive discount rate, which, yeah, brings the number way, way down.
So you're probably wondering, why is that discount rate so insanely high? I mean, 70%? Well, it's because venture capital is a high-risk, high-reward game. A VC fund knows that for every 10 companies they invest in, probably 7 or 8 of them are going to fail completely. So they need those 1 or 2 massive runaway successes, not only to cover all those losses, but also to deliver the huge returns their own investors are expecting. Okay, we're at the final step. It's time to take your mission, your team, and all those numbers and weave them together into one single, powerful story. And that story is your investor deck. Now, a great deck isn't just a list of facts. It tells a story, and that story has a clear beginning, middle, and end. You start with a huge, painful problem. Then you introduce your brilliant solution. You show just how big the market opportunity is, and you finish with the knockout punch, explaining exactly why your team is the absolute best group of people on the planet to make this happen.
And please remember this. The goal of your deck is not to answer every single possible question an investor could ever have. Its number one job is just to get them excited enough to say, okay, I want to learn more. It's about getting that next meeting and keeping the conversation going. And this really brings us to the most important point of all. Building an impact-driven startup is not about choosing between doing good and doing well. The absolute best, most successful models are the ones where financial success and positive impact are completely linked. The more money you make, the more good you do. One literally fuels the other.
So, we've walked through the entire framework, we've looked at the tools, we've talked about the mindset. Now, the only thing left is the most important question of all. What broken system are you going to transform?